Good morning, y'all. Thank you for joining us for our Beef Brunch News update on Tuesday, June 11th. Vince is on the road, so you can't see his lovely face, but he and Brittany are both headed over to a meeting. I think Brittany's service was cutting in and out when I was talking to her before this. So, Vince, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you for Central and South Louisiana update.
Thank you, Ashley. It's always a pleasure. It's definitely the dog days of summer before summer has even started. It's been really hot. We've had some rainfall and showers. Nothing terrible. The last couple of 3 to 5 days, but grass is really growing. I just drove by some hay being cut this morning. So there's abundant forage right now. Lot of hay going to be made here shortly once we get some drying conditions, as we were had an extended wet period for probably for the last 3 weeks. So it's been a blessing and a curse, I guess, contrarily different from what we dealt with last year, moving into the summer. So maybe we're going to make enough hay and move forward with that in respect to our hay shortage last year, or skepticism of being short of hay. So that's a good thing. A lot of people have not fertilized hay fields yet because we were wet through the late days of April and through most of May. So I expect that we're going to have some weed issues and a lot of herbicide going out to take care of those weed problems after they cut this first. I would consider that to be a cleanup cutting, and some of those weeds will be treated moving into that for that second cutting, which would be typical sometime in July. So that's a good thing. As a thing is, our management practices are in perspective of what we normally deal with. So things are back to somewhat normal. Cow herds are most everybody's finished with their breeding season, pulling bulls here, and have people looking for bulls. We're still getting bulls that are subfertile, attributed. Some of the veterinarians are saying largely attributed to the drought conditions last year, and folks who may not have checked their bulls, and following that drought condition, they finding that we having a low conception rate. They had a low calving rate this spring. A lot of open cows. I've heard some comments of late calving cows. People that don't take their bulls off, they're having calves now, which is ultimately too late, in the season. So they're setting themselves up for some respiratory issues, possibly moving, and some slower growth rates. So still some effects from last year's weather phenomenon that we had, and hopefully that we don't face that again this year. So with that being said, I think we're pretty well in the driver's seat as far as having a normal forage year. I'm sure Lee's going to cover the market some, but that's extremely hot. Had a producer contact me last week, or showed me a check stub. He brought some 6-weight heifers, and they pinned them all off at the stockyard, and those heifers brought just a smear under $1,600 a round for some freshly weaned heifers. So that's pretty impressive. The market's strong. How long consumers can sustain this high market, but
Vince, we're losing you. Okay. I think.
Area. So it's.
Oh, there you go. Hey, you cut out for a good solid little bit there.
I'm back again.
All right, Vince, I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm going to mute you. Okay, I kicked Vince off. I'm sorry. Vince, I don't know if you can still hear me or not, but I did mute you because it was cutting out for a good bit. So we appreciate you jumping on, and sorry I kicked you off. I'm going to echo kind of what Vince was saying when I was talking to Brittany a while ago. We were talking about the rain, but I was ultrasounding to check AI percentages on our cows at Dean Lee last week here in Alexandria. And we'll start talking heat stress, and we'll keep talking about it all summer. So just remember, try to work them as early as you possibly can, because it was getting nice and toasty there. But just in regards to the rain, they had said they had 7.5 inches in 7 days prior to that. So I think Wednesday was the last day that they got some rain down there. So I know that's kind of statewide, hit and miss on a lot of these rains and these showers. So Trip, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you for the Northeast region.
All right, thank y'all very much for having me. And I think everybody this morning is scrambling, trying to get to a meeting somewhere. So I'll give a brief update of the Northeast region, then I've got to get out of here myself. We have kind of moved into a pretty normal early summer weather pattern. It's getting hot. It definitely is getting hot. We have had a few milder days mixed in. We haven't had those extreme heat days, one on top of the other. We've had days where we're in the upper 90s, but then we've had days mixed in there where we were back into the lower 90s, even into the 80s. So it's been good to have those breaks, and it's not just that consistent run of extremely high temperatures one day right after another stacked in on top of another. We've had kind of time to catch our breath in between those. What has not been a normal summertime weather pattern is the amount of rainfall that we've got. The amount of rainfall that we've got has been ample, and I think that's the most polite way of putting things. Last summer we couldn't get a rain, and today we can't get 4 days put together without getting a shower. And it's not always big rains that we're getting. We're not getting 3 and 4 inch events one right on top of another, but we're getting steady enough rain to make getting this first round of hay a real challenge. To the west end of my region, pretty well everybody has got that first round of hay in, whether it be through haylage or an early round of dry hay, they've successfully gotten it in. But whenever you move over into the Delta, I was all over the place in the past 2 weeks, and there's water standing in middles in just about every row crop field you drive past, especially in the more poorly drained soils. You can't get a tractor across that ground, so getting that first round of hay in is just not an option right now until it dries out a little bit. In the higher ground or the better drained soil complexes, there are a lot of people over in that part of the world that have gotten that first round in and with varying levels of success. We had a few gaps in the past couple of weeks where we had a few days put together without rainfall, and especially in Richland Franklin Parish, I was in that area a good bit. I saw a lot of guys were able to cut, rake, bale, and store that hay without getting it rained on. But there were some poor people that rolled the dice, and the hay got thoroughly rinsed a few times, and then got the heck beat out of it with a tedder before they were able to get it put in the barn. Which that's pretty normal for this time of year. That's something we expect. One thing with that I want to comment on is the regrowth we've got coming in behind it is gorgeous. I think this second round of hay coming in behind what we're getting out right now is going to be a phenomenal hay crop if we keep moisture levels where we need it to be. Jumping over to the livestock desk, a lot of guys in the area have been able to get their fall calves weaned in the past couple of weeks. Everybody's fairly pleased with the calf crop as far as the condition of them, but we're fighting some insect pressure. Now, we aren't fighting the dust like we typically are. And a lot of the weaning pens are a little bit muddy, actually, but I think I'd rather fight mud than dust. Neither's good, but these animals are stressed out to start with. You're running a risk of respiratory disease with them, and the dust is just an added factor on that increases that chance. So having dust mitigated helps us out a lot on that front. But one thing we're fighting with the insect pressure is house flies. We're used to fighting horn flies this time of year, and we know how to handle that. But I've heard a lot of people talk about house flies being a real issue this time of year, or this year especially. Now, houseflies, they don't bite, they don't sting, but they do get on the animal's face and feed on mucus secretions around the eyes and the muzzle and eat excess feed from around the cow's muzzle. So you can imagine the amount of agitation that can cause, paired with the stable and corn flies that we typically fight. But control practices for houseflies are the same as pretty well anything else. Cultural control practices help out a lot, and our ear tags, pour-ons, things of that nature help keep populations in check as well. Guys, that is about all that I have for us this morning.
Thank you, sir. Lee, I'll turn it on over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to be with you all here today. Echo what everybody said. They pretty much summarized what's been going on in Northwest Louisiana. I will say the last 2 days, yesterday and today, have been a pleasant break. We have been oppressively hot. The humidity has been high, even for Northwest Louisiana standards. But we had some nice lower humidity, lower temperatures roll in yesterday. this morning was quite pleasant. I know a lot of people took advantage of that to try to do some cow working today. I know 2 or 3 different folks that are penning cattle today for that purpose. Um, so moving into the weather, it is wet, folks. It's wet in Northwest Louisiana, and it's not just in the Red River Valley where we traditionally see wet conditions and slow drying, slow times to dry out, I guess you would say. It's in the hills as well, folks. Places where ordinarily you wouldn't be in trouble as far as bogging down with a tractor or a truck or something, or just wet. The soils are just saturated, folks. I know it's been this wet before, but it's been a while since I can remember it being in this state. Just to put it in perspective, I was visiting with a cattle producer north of Shreveport just the other day, and he stated that he has kept up religiously with his rainfall that he's received on his farm since January 1. And he's received this is week old data now, I guess, but had at that time had received 45 inches of rain on his farm. Just to put that in perspective, the average rainfall for Shreveport is just a hair over 51 inches for the whole year, and we're only in June. So anyway, he's 6 inches from having received his total average rainfall for the year, halfway through the year. Um, I'm not a weather forecaster. I'm not a meteorologist or anything like that. But I've been a resident of Northwest Louisiana a good portion of my life, and it sure makes you a little nervous about what's going to happen later on this summer. We've seen it do this several times. Very, very wet springs and early summers go immediately into drought, and I hope that's not the case. Maybe I'm being a little too pessimistic. Some hay is being made. Folks are still trying to get in the fields. Vince talked about that trip, of course, covered that very well. So we'll move directly into the markets, and the markets are red hot, folks. Seeing no signs of abatement as far as prices. There's a lot of optimism on prices. Even though these cattle prices are at nosebleed levels, you're seeing a lot of interest, a lot of buyers coming to the table trying to buy up some lighter type calves. Um, Kind of wonder where they're going with them now, whether they are still stocking some summer pastures in farther northern and western locales, or what they're planning on doing with the cattle. But they're wanting them, and there's a big demand on them for sure. So I've got the market report for this 2 week period. This news update covers. I'm going to add an asterisk before I give the report that the data, I have a very low confidence in the data. The reason why is I don't have a ton of data on this report, but also the data that I do have, these sale barns have been running pretty low census numbers. So they hadn't been selling a lot of cattle. Y'all know how wet it's been. It's been hard to get cattle out and get them penned. So the price points I do have may be from a barn that only ran 150, 200 head that normally runs 400, 500, 600 head on an average week. So take it with a grain of salt in everything, but we do want to report what's out there and what's available to us. So on 500 to 600 pound steers, average of the prices was $2.11 to $2.93 per pound. 5 to 6 weight heifers, $2.15 to $2.62 per pound. Cull cows, $1.10 to $1.36 per pound. Cull bulls, $1.35 to $1.66 per pound. Average of the high prices on bred cows, $2,050, and on pair cattle, $2,716.67 is the average of the high prices. So it's the ever important percent change on the 500 or 600 pound steers. They saw a 2.2% increase. Their heifer mates saw a 8.1% increase. That kind of feeds into maybe a little bit about what Vince was saying about those $1,600, 600 pound heifers there. Maybe some people are trying to put together some replacement type heifers. On cull cows, it showed a 1.9% decrease. I wouldn't put a lot of stock into that, folks. I think that may be just a product of the quality of the data there. Coal bulls 5.9% increase. The bull market is hot, folks. We've talked about it till we're blue in the face. There's not much else I can really say about it. And so the final thing that I want to mention on this report before we get off is we need to recognize Dr. Ashley Edwards. Dr. Edwards was chosen to receive the Achievement Award. She received the Achievement Award last week in Natchitoches at our Louisiana County Agricultural Agents Association. It's our professional organization for folks in ag extension in Louisiana, and give out the one achievement award a year. And Dr. Edwards was the recipient of that. So we're very proud of her. We're proud of the work she does and for putting up with all of us and our antics. And with that, I'll turn it back over to her.
Thank you for making me blush, Lee. I appreciate working with all of y'all. We have some interns working with us this summer, and I told them, I said, I know this sounds corny, but I have my dream job, and I love being able to get up and do what I do every day and work with not just the producers, but with all my colleagues as well. So I do appreciate that, and that award did mean a lot to me. Rolling into our events, the summer's kind of quiet. Lee and I were talking about that with our interns earlier. So we kind of feel bad that we don't have just a ton of events going on for them, but we do coming up in July. So on Friday, July 19th, and I think that I've mentioned this just in passing before, but registration is up for it. This is a livestock economics workshop. It is being hosted in conjunction with Farm Bureau, Livestock Committee, the Louisiana Grazing Lands Conservation Initiative, as well as the LSU Ag Center. So all three of us have worked together on a planning committee. It's been a lot of fun putting this agenda together, and I'm really excited about it. I don't have the full agenda in front of me, but in looking at the flyer, the objectives and the topics in general, beginner or foundational economics terminology. So we do have an accountant coming in that's going to talk, an accountant with a livestock background, I should say, who did grow up raising cattle. His family is still heavily involved in cattle. So she's going to come in and talk about some general terms and some general things to consider. The economics of grazing and pasture management, animal management costs, budgeting and record keeping options, as well as marketing options and overviews. We are going to have a small panel at the end of producers talking about different marketing options as well. So I know Lee and I are both speaking there, and don't ask me what either one of us are talking about because I can't remember. Don't make that face because you did commit. But we're both talking. We have the accountant coming in, and we have a lot of producers coming in as well. So it's a diverse group coming in to put this together. And again, July 19th, that's a Friday, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. There is a $25 registration fee associated with that to be able to put this event on. And it's going to be held at the Best Western Conference Center there in Alexandria. So the link to register is through GLCI, and I've got that in the video and podcast descriptions. I think really that's the major event that we've got coming up. I know our 4-Hers have 4-HU next week. I'll be down there and we'll see y'all there. Something else, I know all the horse shows are happening as well. So good luck to all of those exhibitors. Hope everybody's having fun at camp for those people that are going to camp. Master Cattleman, Brittany's wrapping up hers. She has 22 people that are graduating this week. So I want to congratulate all of those that are finishing that class. And then I do still have the link up. Dr. Donna Gentry is going to start hers, I believe, in August. But the link is up to go to our website to be able to pull hers, her registration information there. So with that, Lee, is there anything else to add? Everybody else abandoned us. All right. Well, we will see y'all again in just a couple of weeks.